I'm Councilwoman Janice Hahn. Welcome to Trade, Commerce, and Tourism Committee. It is Wednesday, November 17th. Councilmember Tom LaBonge, I understand, is not going to be joining us this morning, and Councilmember Rosendahl, 5 minutes away. So out of respect for Councilmember Rosendahl, we will hold on the table the commission appointment. That would be item 1, and the courtesy shuttle and the. Does he care about the printers and the copiers? Probably not. Okay, so we'll hold the shuttle and the commission appointment on the table, and so then we'll start with the harbor items.
Okay. Under item 2, the Board of Harbor Commissioners submits for council approval a report and resolution recommending approval of a replacement lease for 50 years in the form of permit number 853, and that's with the City of Los Angeles General Services Department and the Board of Public Works Bureau of Sanitation for the continued use of 25 acres of harbor-owned property at 445 Ferry Street on Terminal Island for operations of the city's wastewater treatment plant and sewer outfall. I would like to mention that most city leases have a maximum term of 30 years. In this case, the board made a finding that a 50-year term would be in the Harbor Department's best interest. The council, under the charter, needs to make a similar finding that it would be in the city's best interest to have the 50-year term.
Okay.
Morning, Councilwoman Hahn. Mike Galvin, Director
Mike.
of Real Estate with the Port of LA. What we're proposing today is a 50-year term permit to the City of Los Angeles General Services, who serves as a property manager, more or less, for Bureau of Sanitation for the Terminal Island Treatment Plant. And the Terminal Island Treatment Plant basically deals with wastewater recycling and wastewater treatment on Terminal Island in the Port of Los Angeles. And we are proposing a 50-year term because we believe it's in our best interest as well as in the best interest of the city for long-term investment strategies for that facility.
I mean, I think that's the case you're going to have to make, because clearly under our city charter, we allow for 30 years, and when there's a proposal for anything longer, we need a 2/3 vote by the city council. So you need to really make the case on why this is a good deal.
The long-term investment strategy for the Terminal Island Treatment Plant requires planning out into the 20 and 30 and longer time frame. And so they have an investment strategy in excess of $100 million that goes out that far, and that's the way that they're planning. And so in negotiations, we did speak about having something less than a 50-year term, but it resulted in them having some difficulty with being able to plan in their capital program out into the horizon. And in the end of the day, that was not feasible for the other party, which was General Services. So the Harbor Department relooked at the situation and understood their investment strategy and decided that it was in the best interest of the Harbor Department and in the city's best interest to go forward with the 50-year term to allow them to better plan for investment.
Now, I understand that Bureau of Sanitation and GSD still had some issues when this went to ITGA committee. Have those been resolved?
My understanding is that they have been. That there was some confusion over an issue that was resolved, which was relating to the 30-year term issue.
Do we have GSD or Bureau of Sanitation here? There's GSD. Morning.
Hi, Jack Scott, General Services Asset Management.
And Lisa Mowry, Bureau of Sanitation.
Okay. What were the issues that you had when this was at ITGA, and have they been resolved?
Actually, the issues occurred prior to ITGA and the MFC committee. At that time, we went to committee with a report that stated there was an early termination clause after 30 years, and that was a concern to Bureau of Sanitation. And subsequent to approval of that report in MFC, Bureau of Sanitation was able to negotiate directly with the Harbor Department to remove that provision.
Is that true?
That's correct. We're quite happy with the agreement.
Okay, so early termination clause has been taken out,
Correct.
and everybody's happy.
Yes.
Okay. Amazing that you were able to negotiate with the Harbor Department on removing language from a potential lease. Shocking. Okay, so if everybody's happy, then we're happy, and we're happy to approve this.
Okay.
Okay.
Could we also go over item 3, which
Yes,
is the
I meant to do that. Yeah.
the IT and GA report, and
Okay.
that's the report where the committee made 2 recommendations, and it's only the first recommendation for approval that this committee should recommend to council, because the second one has been resolved. The second.
Okay, and that's what we were
issue.
just talking about,
Yeah.
the early termination clause. Okay, so we'll take 2 and 3, and we'll approve the ITGA's committee report and the recommendation. Recommendation 1 as recommendation 2 is no longer needed. Okay. It's, I only have 1 member here today, so it's going to move on without recommendation, just a communication from the chair. But I think we can make the case on the council floor to get 2/3 vote.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're continuing, you're holding service there?
I'm still holding, we're holding the commission appointment, we're holding the courtesy shuttle. Okay, the printers and copiers, I think we can
Yeah.
approve that.
Yes, under item 5, the Board of Airport Commissioners submits for approval the First Amendment to the contract with Ryco Americas Corporation for the lease, purchase, and maintenance of copying and printing equipment. This First Amendment would extend the term from 3 years to 5 years, would allow LAWA to purchase special equipment that would help to reduce potential security breaches through access to information stored in the printers and copiers, and the amendment would increase the expenditure limit for the additional 2 years. And the CAO has recommended approval.
Okay,
Mark Adams, Los Angeles
Mark.
World Airports. Hi. What we're doing here is just extending our attachment to the city contract with RICO for another year and 9 months or something like that, so it'll terminate at the same time that the city contract terminates, and adding some money for some additional services that we're.
can you
during-
explain this idea about the added security that will be added to each copier or printer? And how this works?
Hi, I'm Nita Caprio with Procurement Services at LAWA. Basically, there's 2 components to this, which we'll have an option to. DOSS software basically erases the hard drive on the copier. So as that copier makes copies, it retains the last copies that it's made on the hard drive. When we return the copiers, of course, those last copies would be available. So the DOSS software, which we're looking at to put on our machines that are in sensitive areas, airport police, personnel, security badging, what it would do is, as it makes those copies, it would automatically erase the hard drive. The second option that we put in was the ability to buy the hard drives from RICO at the end of the 5-year lease. So we could actually buy those and either erase them or destroy them so that
Right.
that information can't be out there.
I see.
But we're currently looking at the feasibility of needing these types of software where we need them. So we have the option to purchase them, but we have not made the decision whether or not we're going to purchase any or all of those.
The software that would,
The software or the ability to buy back the hard drives as we see fit.
so you're comfortable that going forward you've dealt with this issue?
Well, the contract provides the funding
Right.
to exert these options if we want to. For
Why don't
security
you feel like you need to exert the options?
Further discussions with RICO, after a machine has been used for 5 years, they're normally destroyed, they're not redistributed. The only time that it comes into play is if we have an early return, which in some cases with RICO, the only early returns are for those departments or divisions that are defunded, and we can return a machine before the 5-year lease. So in that
Has
case, they
there-
might be resold, but in more cases, the machines after 5 years are no longer used.
Have we had any instance of any security breach in this manner
No, there was
that we
some-
know of?
No, we have not, but there was some publicity regarding some breaches for copy machines that were in the media, which led us to address the issue.
It's precautionary.
Okay.
So that it limits, the expenditures are going up from 1,250,000 to 2,500,000. So it's 1,250,000.
Yes.
Why is it such a cost?
We've had some increases. We've had some additional machines. We had a separate contract with Canon for our color machines that we have now purchased, or we've now leased the Ricoh machines to replace those. We've also had an increase in activity, and on the Ricoh contract, we pay a base lease price, and we pay a per copy charge. So the per copy charges have gone up significantly since the beginning of the contract.
Let me ask you this again. There's money in this. There's extra money to allow for the purchase of this security equipment.
Yes.
But you're telling me you don't think you're going to use that option?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
And not on every machine in the sensitive areas.
How much money is in this contract for that piece of it?
I believe it's about, it's around 30,000, I think. It's a small amount, basically. The hard drive purchase is $350 per, and it's $300 for
Seems,
the
what's the
DOS.
downside of purchasing that security piece? In other words, if you got money in this contract, we're approving it. I don't understand why you don't just go and purchase these security options. I mean, that's
I
do
think-
you
I
get
think-
the money back if you don't?
No.
Well,
Well,
no,
then
the money
I don't
wouldn't.
I don't understand why you would not.
The money wouldn't be expended. I mean, it would stay in our.
Just authority to spend the money.
It's just
Right.
authority to spend the money here. So
Right.
So we may or may not spend the $30,000 on the various security components, or for all or some of the machines.
Right. I don't know. I just don't understand why you wouldn't do it out of precaution.
We'll take that recommendation back.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the authority to do it. We're approving it. In my opinion,
I think
you ought to
our-
go. You ought to purchase it.
I believe our IT department wanted a little bit more time to study and to look at, is this a necessity? Is this something we need to do? Is there an alternative? Before they committed to it.
Yeah, but it must have been something everybody looked at, or wouldn't be in this amendment.
They
You
did
would.
look at it.
You wouldn't be bringing it before us to allow for the purchase. That's
Well, we
part
need-
of the.
we need to
That's
do-
part of the increase that Councilman Rosendahl was alluding to.
Right. We needed to extend the amendment, extend the contract just because it's expiring anyway.
Right.
It's expiring at the end of next month. So while we're doing the extension, we also added this component to
Right,
the
so you might as well use it.
Sure.
I think there's no downsides. My recommendation would be use it. Because wouldn't we feel bad if we all approved it, you asked for it, you didn't do it, and then there was some breach of security down the road? I would say do it.
Makes sense to me.
Okay. Yes, Mr. CAO, anything?
We concur with their request.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve this? Okay. With the recommendation that you go ahead and purchase the security components.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, let's go back to, why don't we take the commission appointment?
Yes, under item 1, the mayor submits for council confirmation the appointment of Mr. Boyd Height to the Board of Airport Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2014. This appointment is to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Mr. Sam Nazarian. The City Ethics Commission staff have reviewed and reported to the council on Mr. Height's statement of economic interests.
Good morning, Mr. Height. We, first of all, we always want to thank people who actually agree to serve in this volunteer position, particularly for a commission that has such an incredible volume of oversight for our great airports. So we appreciate that. You have an interesting background. You have a very interesting resume. And I'd love to hear, sort of the normal things we usually ask commissioners is, what do you see as our greatest challenge going forward at LAX? How do you think your background fits being a commission? I was interested certainly in your law background in terms of being involved in the litigation that involved some of the major air crashes in our history, and maybe what does that perspective bring, and what should we continue to be looking at? Because no matter what we do, and by the way, my priorities have been modernizing that airport. My priorities have been about, preparing for the next generation of aircraft, making sure that the passenger experience at LAX is positive with concessions. But obviously, if that airport is not safe, then really none of the other things that we've been pushing, really matter. I mean, we want people to be safe at that airport, and maybe your background could give us some insight into how we're doing with our runways and other things that certainly make a major crash something that we don't ever want to deal with at that airport.
Well, in terms of the particulars, I'm not really fully into, I haven't studied those issues, but I did spend about 10 years doing aircraft litigation, mainly for Boeing. I also did a lot of legal work over the years for Lockheed. And those, obviously the most important thing down there is safety, and I learned a good bit about what can go wrong with with aircraft near airports. And the most dangerous part, obviously, is the landing, and the second most dangerous is takeoff. But the other issues that you talk about seem to me to be very important. The LAX is sort of hard to get to, and it's not as congenial and welcoming you as perhaps it could be. But so those are important issues. Indeed, what has struck me in the investigation I've done about this so far is that there's really a pretty full plate there at the airport in terms of the things they're doing. I also might mention, in terms of my background, that I spent a couple of years during the Carter administration heading the office at the Department of State, which was in charge of bilateral agreements around the world, and learned a good bit about the economics of air travel in the course of that. So I'm hopeful that that background would prove useful here.
Right, because we know that certainly the economic development and the economic trickle-down from an airport is huge for our region, for our economy. We know every international flight represents dollars into our economy, subsequent job creation. So we want airlines coming to LAX. I just traveled to Vancouver on the Roots conference where we made the pitch to the airline industry on why LAX still made sense for them, still made sense for their passengers. But I will tell you, they're all looking to make sure that our gates are ready to accommodate that next generation of aircraft, that the passenger experience is something that they can sell. And we have a ways to go on that. But I think ultimately it's safety. That's what people care about. So we welcome you to this position and look forward to your different perspective towards everything we're doing down there at LAX.
Thank you.
Mr. Rosendahl, the council member that represents that airport in his council district.
And my councilman.
And your count even better.
He actually lives in Mar Vista, so we're a couple of hometown boys. And you're a member of the Pacific Council on International Affairs, which I've been a member for 15, 20 years on that. And of course, we were both appointees under Carter. I was a White House appointee to the State Department as well. So, but we never really crossed paths until yesterday when we had a sort of an impromptu discussion. In your background, there is some financial realities that your investments and tradings and so on and so forth. And we had some issues with the commission having to recuse itself from some issues. When you look at your portfolio and you look at the airport's issues, do you see any potential problems with that part of?
I don't think so. Most of my investments are in mutual funds, which is not a problem. There are a few investments. I own some, or my wife owns some bank stocks. You never know when banks are going to turn up someplace, but I don't know of any particular areas that would prove difficult.
When you look at the airport, of course, it's just down the street from us in Mar Vista. It's rather convenient for us, but you and I have had a good discussion about regionalism and how regionalism in this region can attain itself. It's truly, I know that United, Delta, and American Airlines care about their bottom line, and that's why they do nonstop, direct, frequent, and discounted flights out of LAX and do not do it out of Ontario. And the reason is they don't care how long it takes for you to get to their gate because it is the cheapest takeoff and landing airport of a major metropolitan area, frankly, in the world, for sure in the United States. So my hope is we can keep modernization going and not get caught into this convenience notion, which could be interpreted by some people in Westchester to mean expansion, which could lead back to lawsuits, which could put the modernization on hold, which would stop the formula from taking effect of making LAX no longer the cheapest, and therefore it would incent Ontario. I'm pretty embarrassed to see Ontario sitting there with less passengers every year rather than robustly getting up to 11 million, which they could handle right now, and with some fine-tuning up to 29 million, and they welcome the notion of regionalism. So I hope you can focus with your business background, especially your bottom line awareness, with the major airlines and help us get them to appreciate that the region is 25 million people from Santa Barbara to San Diego, and we do care how long it takes for us to get from the ground to the gate. We know the enthusiasm of Measure R and 12 projects that would include an Anaheim to Ontario link, would include all kinds of, the Green Line into the airport and so on and so forth. But I'm hoping that you can take a look at that and encourage the airlines to work with Ontario so that we can get that going rather than put all the pressure always on this little LAX.
Well, I certainly think that you're absolutely right that there has to be an economic incentive of some kind to get the airlines to move. The British have been trying for 30 years to get aircraft to move out of Heathrow to Gatwick, and they've had only modest success. So there has to be, the point you make is very sound, I think.
I'd also like you to take a look, since you're a transition figure. Villaraigosa will be gone as mayor, and you will still be on this commission in that transition. The modernizations projects are going to cost $10 to $15 billion over the next 10 to 15 years. In fact, it's the largest public works project in all of Southern California. When you look at the projects, which I hope you get a chance to study them, first is the Bradley Terminal. We hope to have completed by 12/12/12. We also want to get the people
At 12
mover,
p.m.
the Green Line, the consolidated rental, and also the midfield terminal. And I'd like you, especially with your business and legal background, to look at those modernization projects and how, in fact, we could maybe expedite some of them a little longer and not just put all of our energy on Bradley in this time, but simultaneously be able, like the consolidated rental, for instance. I think that's something that we know where we want to put it. We want to move forward with those studies to accelerate those studies so we can get that going. We know last night I did a community meeting in Westchester. The Crenshaw line, which is 8.5 miles, can conceivably done by 2016, which would have a stop at Aviation and Century. It would hook into, hopefully, the Green Line and the People Mover into the airport. So with your background, it would be great if I could get a sense from you that these projects can get on a faster track than one at a time. And maybe we can really accelerate the modernization.
I'll certainly try to look at that as a matter of high priority. I don't have any sense currently about where they lie in the hierarchy of things. I do know that Bradley's modernization is a very high priority, and that the people at the airport are focused very acutely on that completion date at 12 o'clock.
Right, exactly. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you stepping forward.
Yes, again, just listening, I think to Councilman Rosendahl, of the huge issues that are facing us. But I will tell you, one of the things that every commission in the city still needs to pay attention to is transparency, honesty, purity, everything that I think the public looks at every time you award a contract. every time there's a contract awarded, we count on the commission to pay attention to the RFP process, the scoring process, the panel that makes the awards, because that will cause more angst, than, making sure that we have the runway in the right position. Honestly, those are the things that the public gets very involved in. We get very involved in. So we just really want to count on you to hold the staff accountable to the process that they go forward when they award any contract at that airport. And we hope you take a good hard look at that going forward.
I'm very acutely aware of that issue, and with this much money being expended, it's very important.
Right. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the mayor's appointment?
Enthusiasm.
Okay, we'll approve you and move you forward to the full city council. When is he in council? Today. Okay.
Thank you
You're
very
on your
much.
way. Thank you. Okay, now let's take up
Service air.
4. Okay, we need to get to the hotel workers. Well, too late. Okay.
Under item 4,
Yes. Let's move forward, because the hotel workers is a really big issue. So.
the Board of Airport Commissioners submits for approval the Fourth Amendment to the contract with Service Air for the operation of the 24-hour courtesy shuttle service at LAX. The Fourth Amendment would extend the contract term by 6 months, beginning January 1st, 2011, and ending June 30th, 2011, pending completion of the request for proposals process for award of a new contract, and pending the resolution of 2 protests in that process. The amendment would also authorize additional compensation authority for the additional 6 months, and would add specific provisions for participation of minority and women-owned business enterprises.
Okay, what I'm going to ask you is, I know we're extending this current contract for 6 months, and the airport is resolving some of the issues raised by 2 protests that have been made on the awarding of this longer contract.
Correct.
Again, this is kind of the stuff that I was alluding to previously. Where are we on those protests? Can you speak to if they're going to be resolved, or it's going to...
Well, the reason, Mark Adams, Los Angeles World Airports, the reason we're requesting the 6-month amendment, 6-month extension, is obviously because we were prepared to award the contract to a vendor, the long-term contract, and during the protest period, 2 of the not selected vendors raised questions that now the city attorney is sorting through. I think we're confident that we will get an answer from the city attorney on the validity of those protests and be able to present this to our board and move ahead and have an orderly transition to the new vendor within the 6-month period, which is why we've...
Now, these are the courtesy shuttles. These are the ones that take...
Like the LAX shuttle that drives people around between the terminals, yes.
So are these the ones that go to the parking lots? Or
Yeah, they go out to the lot C, or they just, the A shuttle just goes around the terminal loop, then the one that
And
goes
the
out
current the current vendor did not win the next proposal?
No, they're one of the protesters.
They're one of the protesters. Okay. So 6 months, you think we'll be able to resolve it?
Yes.
And if, in fact, it comes back as it was with that first package of the concessions, we had to throw the whole thing out and start over?
That's a possibility,
That's a
depending
possibility.
on what the city attorney determines relative to these protests.
Okay, and you would come back then and ask
We'd
for...
have to ask for another extension of this agreement, yes.
So the loser becomes the winner.
A couple of quick questions, just for the record. I'm obviously very supportive of the shuttle and any efforts that make it easier for travelers to understand the system and to utilize it quickly. Have we completed installation of the digital signs that announce when the next shuttle will arrive?
There are signs installed. I can't say offhand whether the installation is 100% complete.
Just get back with us on that.
Will do.
I understand that we're considering making some changes to the curbside, potentially moving things around to make things easier. Can you give us a glimpse of what it might look like or what has been proposed? Are those changes part of the specific plan amendment study process or separate from that?
I don't have that information available. I can get back to your staff on that.
Occasionally, we get calls from travelers that would like to see better and more effective signage for everything from shuttles to cabs and other transportation services. Are such improvements also being considered?
I think that's considered as part of the new contract, yes.
And I look forward to hearing back on that. And are we still reviewing the automated people mover as part of the specific plan amendment study?
I would say that that's an affirmative. It's not part of this contract, though.
All right, great.
It's not what's before us.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to make a motion to approve this?
Sure will.
Okay, 6 months, an extension on this, and you'll get back to us, obviously, on how the protests are going.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, do you mind a personal order that if I could ask Jaime to respond to? We were talking about security issues. You had talked about a blue ribbon commission type. The mayor is in fact.
Right, you know what, let's do the hotel workers first, and then if we have some time, because that's not
do
been
that
agendized.
Yeah.
So let's move on to item 6.
Under item 6, we have consideration of motion Han Alarcon, introduced on September 28th, 2010, proposing that the council
Why don't we take
ask-
6 and 7 together?
Ask the city attorney to prepare and present an ordinance to amend the city's hotel worker retention ordinance to apply to all hotels having 50 rooms or more that are located within the city of Los Angeles.
Okay.
Item 7 is motion by Koretz Han, introduced on November 2nd, proposing that the council ask the city attorney, with the CLA's assistance, to prepare and present an ordinance within 90 days, to prepare and present within 90 days to the Trade, Commerce, and Tourism Committee to require the recalling of any hotel workers laid off because of construction or remodeling at their hotel.
And so you just went through 6 and 7. Okay, great. I'll tell you what I want to do is have public comment first. If you're here for item 6 or 7, I'd like to take that first. So we have Ann Williams, John Marco, Robert Amano. And I got 4 microphones. Oh, Ann Williams is on 7 too. Might as well consolidate. If you can, in 2 minutes,
Oh, okay, yeah, for sure.
because we're running out of time.
All right, good morning. I'm Ann Williams with the Central City Association, representing 450 businesses employing over 350,000 people in Los Angeles County, and we strongly oppose both items 6 and 7 before you today. CCA's membership knows firsthand the terrible economic times that we're in, and believe me, we're all feeling the impacts of this assault on our livelihoods. But where is the support for the job creators in Los Angeles? LA and its 12.5% unemployment rate are consistently ranked in the top 5 worst cities in the country, behind places like Detroit. Have you as council members asked yourselves why nearby competing cities like Burbank and Pasadena don't have the same unemployment rate that the city of LA does? And I can tell you it's because LA repeatedly pushes ordinances like this, like the retention ordinance and the recall rights ordinance, and tells the rest of the county and the country that your business is not safe here. That is the reputation of Los Angeles today, and it's the single biggest barrier to attracting the new investment. That's the only way we are going to be able to recover from this great recession. So we urge you to oppose both of these motions.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, committee and Councilmember Hahn, Councilmember Rosendale, Bob Amano, newly appointed Executive Director of the Hotel Association of Los Angeles.
Welcome.
Pleasure. Thank you. Been in office now for about 20 days. And here I am talking to you, but I'm sure it won't be the last time. In regards to these motions that are currently in front of us, I come here representing the hotel establishments within the city and voice their concerns of the impacts that these ordinances will have on not only the hotels themselves, but the general hospitality community of the city of Los Angeles. What we are requesting for is to have further dialogue if it needs to go through, but to request for an economic impact analysis, which was obviously part of the process that was upheld in July regarding the OAE's results in looking at such ordinances. So rather than reiterate what my colleagues have said, I'd like to just again thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you, and that you further look at curtailing this to look at further dialogue and communications with the economic analysis.
Thank you for coming. John.
Good morning. I'm John Marco. I'm the general manager from the Kawada Hotel, which is downtown here. I'm also the treasurer for the Los Angeles Area Hotel Association, so we've had meetings with my colleagues and the hoteliers around the city. Councilmember, I appreciate your comments about the trickle-down effect from the airport community that it has. There's not a lot of trickling going on. My hotel is a small independent hotel, 116 rooms. It's not a 500-room hotel.
Where's it located?
2nd and Hill, right downtown here.
Right.
We've had a tremendous effect from LA Live. When LA Live thought in, we thought it would be booming and be good, and I supported that. But the economy has certainly caused some problems for us. And we're dropping our revenues 15-20%, barely keeping our heads above water and keeping our businesses surviving. Through that time, we haven't cut our staff payrolls, benefits, anything. We take care of our employees. We need our employees. We have a lot of respect for them, and we need the work that they do for us. Okay.
Good.
As you're looking at adding more restrictions to us and environments to tell us who we can hire and what we can do, it really restricts us when we look at renovations, changing our product, changing what we have to be successful, to be competitive in the workplace. If we need to remodel a hotel and we need to come back and say, well, we can't have 2 restaurants, or we need 1 restaurant, or we need to change the level of service that we do, and how many employees that we need, we don't need the trickle-up effect from the government saying, control this and control that, you have to do this. We're just being pushed from both sides here and trying to keep our heads above water and being successful and taking care of our employees. Our employees, we need the employees. If we do renovations and lay people off, we need to hire people back. But we need to select the people that make the most sense for our businesses to be successful, to attract the people, the visitors that are coming to LA.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think if you care about your employees, like you said, and you want to take care of your employees, then I don't think either one of these should bother you. Okay, Maya, how do I pronounce your last name? Sutler.
Yes.
Okay, and you put in a card in 6 and 7, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, and Karen. Is Karen still here? Oh, Kyan. Sorry. What kind of handwriting is that?
Illegible, apparently.
Okay. All right.
Good morning. Maya
Good morning.
Zettler on behalf of VICA, Valley Industry and Commerce Association. We are also here this morning representing the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. We are strongly in opposition to both of these proposals before you today. We feel that these proposals will just add additional burdensome regulation on an industry that's already been very heavily hit in this economic recession. And we feel that LA has been, in the recent months, really trying to change its reputation around, help it to become business friendly, working on proposals such as the business tax holiday, and helping with preferential bids, trying to really help businesses in the city. And we feel that this ordinance would just place additional burdensome restrictions on hotels, hinder their ability to conduct commerce in the best way that they see fit. And we just want to ensure that they're not at a competitive disadvantage with other neighboring jurisdictions. We want to ensure that this industry is alive, well, and booming, and we want to make sure that they're not at a competitive disadvantage. As was mentioned earlier, we are also in support of sending these proposals to be evaluated by the Office of Economic Analysis. We have submitted a letter in the record to express that a little further, and we feel this is exactly the type of proposals that should be evaluated by that Office of Economic Analysis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, council members. Kyan Kani on behalf of Councilmember Paul Koretz. Just want to thank you for scheduling this item today. Councilman believes that this item is all about supporting the tourism industry, which this committee definitely knows is critical to the city. By asking hotels to recall their employees, the councilman believes we're supporting the tourism industry by ensuring that employees that are most familiar with a hotel, with the surroundings of a hotel, and with the city continue to provide the excellent service to their clients. And sort of echoing what the business community mentioned, we think that this will actually help jobs in the city of LA. This will keep the good paying jobs in the city. It'll, keep employees at hotels that they're most familiar with. And it'll help serve the public better. This will also give hotels the best opportunity to transition from their construction projects, from their remodeling projects, to reopening, because they'll have staff that are familiar with everything back at work right away. They won't have to retrain people. The folks will be there and ready to go. Just really brief, wanted to thank you for hearing this item today, and we appreciate you moving this forward.
Thank you. Thank you. And tell the council member we appreciate his motion and interest in this. Okay, can I call James Elmendorf up to the table to talk about these issues? So basically, we're dealing with two motions here. One is my motion with Richard Alarcon talking about keeping hotel workers 90 days if the hotel should change ownership. And the other one is Councilmember Koretz's motion that talks about, it's called the Recall Ordinance, and it would basically ask hotels to reconsider any workers that were laid off due to a remodeling or reconstruction of a hotel. So both those issues are what we're talking about today. Why don't you tell us, what's the environment out there? Maybe speak to some of these fears that we're hearing from the business community and the hotel owners, that this somehow makes them less competitive or sends a big message that we're not open for business here in Los Angeles.
Sure. Thank you very much. James Elmendorf from the LA Alliance for a New Economy. I think generally, would certainly share the concerns about the broader economy that many of the speakers earlier have raised, that, unemployment is obviously a major problem, and it has been in the hotel industry, as there have been significant layoffs that have had to occur. Some, happily not all hotels, but some hotels have had to reduce employment as a result of the downturn in the economy. More generally, I think people should know that the hotel environment is starting to recover, which is the good news. It has declined for several years, and now in 2010, across the city, we're seeing significant increases in revenue and occupancy, which is fantastic. However, the overall results of the downturn has meant that we have seen a number of problems with hotels in both respects. First, in the situation where some hotels we've seen send their keys in, they're being foreclosed on, or people have not been able to continue to pay off their loans. More hotels are starting to get sold. Some for reasons like that have to do with the inability to pay mortgage, and some as the economy starts to recover, now wanting to be able to sell off the assets as things are moving forward. And so I know across the country, hotel sales have doubled in the last year, which is a significant change that's occurring. Similarly, some hotels have used this opportunity of the downturn and said, well, that's terrible, but let's look at that and invest in upgrading the hotel while we have reduced business, which I think is excellent for Los Angeles. We need those things. We need upgraded hotel rooms. Many of our facilities are old. So that's kind of the overall context. Speaking to both, first the worker retention issue, the history of the worker retention ordinance is, of course, it was adopted in 1995 in the city of Los Angeles when many workers at LAX lost their jobs as a result of the transition and concessions there. In 2005, as both of you know very well, the council adopted an ordinance applying worker retention to the hotels on Century Boulevard. It was a package of 3 ordinances, the other 2 of which business owners and hotel owners were very much opposed to. They filed unsuccessful lawsuits over both the living wage ordinance and the tip protection ordinance, but did not either speak in opposition to the worker retention ordinance or file any litigation over it. And since that time, there have been several hotel sales that have occurred, all of which have occurred smoothly and successfully. The reason is because the requirement of the ordinance is merely that when a hotel is sold, that the employees be maintained for a period of 90 days. I should stop and say, first of all, if the new owner decides that they need fewer employees, the worker retention ordinance would not prohibit that owner from deciding that that's an effective business decision. It merely says that if they have a certain number of jobs, that they shall keep the employees who are there in those jobs. It also does not prevent them from getting rid of people who they consider to be poor employees or unsuited to work there. There's a 90-day period to ensure a transition, but at that point, an employer may perfectly well look at any employee on their staff and determine that they are not suited to work there. Or earlier, they may determine that they do not have the hours or the needs for that job or that employee. So it's merely about ensuring that you don't have people lose their jobs as a result of a hotel sale. This is actually a really rare thing. It happens every couple of years with 1 or 2 hotels that will do this. And so what this ordinance really deals with is those outliers. For the most part, most employers, be they good employers, bad employers, paying high wages or low wages, have no reason when they take over a hotel to want to see massive turnover. It's not helpful for most businesses.
Right.
And so this is really dealing with an outlier situation. To my knowledge, there's never been any problem with any hotel complying with this ordinance on Century Boulevard, nor have there been any problems with city contractors complying with this ordinance. The the right of recall ordinance addresses a slightly different issue. It was originally adopted in Santa Monica following 9/11 when you had staffing levels drop 40% in many hotels. And so the council there adopted an ordinance to say when and if the economy recovers and hotels decide they want to bring people back, offer first crack to those people who were left before.
Right.
Again, it's something most hotels would like to do because those people know the hotel, they have experience there, they're trained there. You would want to bring them back. But some hotels would not, and so the goal here is to ensure that they get first crack. Some employees will have moved on over the course of a 1-year transition because of a layoff due to a downturn or because of a renovation. But for those who want to still have the job back, the security of knowing that they can return when the economy recovers is an incredible value and has no economic impact to the employers.
Is that enforceable?
Is it enforceable that the way they have done it in Santa Monica is that hotels are required merely to keep a list, send a letter, certified letter saying the position is open if you'd like it. If they don't respond in a period of time, then move on. I think it was 10 days or something relatively quickly. It gives employees a quick response to be able to do that. And I think, yes, it is very enforceable. There haven't been any problems.
Okay, and Santa Monica also has the worker retention. Is
They
that
do.
correct?
Yes.
For all their hotels?
Yes.
Yes, and is that city known for being business unfriendly, or has the sky fallen in on Santa Monica? What's their how's their economy?
Well, I think like all of Southern California, they've certainly struggled, but the hotel industry in Santa Monica has generally done better than the hotel industry in Los Angeles, in part clearly because of the advantages of the beach that they have. But I think, the experience in both Santa Monica after those ordinances and in Century and in other places has been that, that the fundamental issues that affect the hotel business have to do with tourism, have to do with travel, have to do with much broader issues. There are no economic costs that are involved in this, and so would certainly ask that we get the city attorney to start the process of drafting an ordinance so that a full discussion can be had about all the details and particulars here in this committee.
Well, thank you very much, and that's what we intend to do here today is to hopefully get the city attorney to begin drafting both these ordinances for the city of Los Angeles. And, we've heard that we'd like to see economic analysis, so maybe we also ask the Office of Economic Analysis to do one on both of these ordinances. But, we do always hear from the business community, they're very anxious. Certainly they want to make sure that Los Angeles is not putting in ordinances that in any way hurt their ability to do business. But again, we heard a lot of fear over our living wage ordinance. None of those things came true. We heard a lot of fear about the Century Boulevard ordinances. None of that has come true. And, I think we have to, and we heard from one hotel owner who said, I love my employees. I need my employees. I care about my employees. And I think that's the other issue here today, I know for me, is, what's hurting the city of Los Angeles is, people having not being able to pay their mortgages and having their homes foreclosed on. That hurts us because then we lose, property tax revenue, sales tax revenue. This city depends on sales tax, property tax, transit occupational tax, occupancy tax. So that's how we get revenue. So I like to do things that keep people employed. I like to do things that keep people at every level paying their mortgages, buying things, paying sales tax. That's the revenue that the city of Los Angeles depends on to provide services to make this a safe city, to make this a livable city, to make this a clean city. So I tend to obviously like these kinds of ordinances. As you said, most business owners, most hotel owners will do this anyway. Mm-hmm. But if we can protect sort of the least among us, those who are hanging on to pay their mortgages, to provide for their families. And this is something I want to do. Councilmember Rosendahl, would you like to add to this?
Pretty well said everything, except restating again that this is a work in progress that will have input. The Office of Economic Analysis should obviously, Bike's point is well taken. We don't want to lose jobs. We just want to ensure jobs, create jobs, and we want to support the workers who do these jobs. So everything is right. And I'll second that motion.
Great. Let's move both of these forward. Ask the city attorney to begin drafting these ordinances, as well as getting a analysis from the Office of Economic Analysis. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience wishing to? I'm not sure we can bring that up.
I can ask a question. This is public comment here. He can come up and just give me a comment on it. What I was asking, and I'm delighted that you were able to stay, there's been so much discussion. Ms. Hahn took leadership here in this committee about having a security blue ribbon commission. We've been talking with various stations about security at the airport. I feel really comfortable that the integrated strategies are working well. The mayor has announced he would create a blue ribbon commission on it. There's been people saying, well, he said he would do it by this date or that date, or what's the composition. Whatever you can tell us on the record at this point would be helpful.
Sure. Jaime De La Vega, Deputy Mayor for Transportation. Unfortunately, Councilman, I actually don't have any updated information. That issue is being handled under our public safety team. I've already contacted them, and they're going to report back to your office directly later today with the status.
Thank you very much.
Okay, very good.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no other comments, we'll adjourn this meeting. Good. 3 minutes.